And 6 weeks later, so the kids didn't have a cat or something, they were hung up inside the place. That's the dog. Yeah, because they write me and say, I will, no, you already have some question, and I'm like, no, that's the snacks. It's really cute. Yeah, it was cute. You're not, you are not. Email, whatever it is, they can take some.
It sounds like turned it in, they say, yeah, little pal.
She wants to go.
Yeah.
Because yesterday I went and got my COVID.
Don't get both at once.
I got one in each arm, but they both had, the COVID one is like really, and the size of the needles of the booster is like twice the size of James Day. I know, it's a, cause remember how those little things were really small? And I wouldn't.
Not any of them?
I kept forgetting to go get it.
I haven't had any.
Oh, Jay. My people that's a military, well, you go in all night, they line us up.
I've actually yet to even get.
No, you just said it, so there you go. Jinx yourself.
I'm not always leave longer discussions because I know.
Oh, yeah, it's yellow this week, not purple. Oh, Jack. Call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. Please rise as you are able and join us in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Payroll warrants for March 8th, 2024, and March 15th, 2024, open for motion.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Accounts payable warrants for March 12th, 2024, and March 19th, 2024. Over your motion.
To approve. Looks like there's a typo on the motion itself, but it's 12 and 19, correct?
12 and 19.
Yeah.
Yes,
Which is what I
it says 12 and 5.
Right.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Approval of the minutes for March 5th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded, corrections?
Yeah, right on correction on 10 B. It should be Steve Williams and not Pete Williams.
Steve instead of Pete.
You got that, Jackie?
Steve Williams.
Any other questions? Okay. All those in favor with the correction? Motion passes 5-0. I believe Dennis has a special presentation we would like to read.
Really have a special presentation, but I do have a letter here from the Northern Criminal Justice Academy addressed to Chief Larry Buckletide. I am very pleased to inform you that Cadet Logan Hilton has been elected treasurer of the 45th Basic Law Enforcement Training Program. The election of Cadet Hilton by his peers is indicative of special leadership ability. This reflects credit upon Cadet Hilton as well as the Wiscasset Police Department. Congratulations on the fine caliber of Officer Hilton. The Wiscasset Police Department is entrusted with the responsibility of providing law enforcement services. Sincerely, Joshua Daly, Basic Law Enforcement Training Program Training Coordinator.
Wow,
Congratulations, Chief. Good pick.
that's great. That's just great. Wow.
Thanks.
Now we just gotta keep them.
We do not have any committee appointments, we do not have any public hearings. Is there anyone who would like to speak on public comment on anything not on the agenda? Come on forward, Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen Sullivan. I live in Wiscasset and I just, I don't know if this is the right place, but I was walking through the village and there's a tree on the green that's really rotten and really big. And it could be a real liability and I just wonder, is anyone aware of it? Is that,
Driving one on Town Common.
yes.
We're about,
Long call.
Well, there's one that's really bad. It's where the bench that Dusty Heather, the bench isn't there, but it's kind of closer to the town. And it's been rotten for years, but the bark is off. There's holes in it. It's in bad shape and probably will go into the green as opposed to into the street, but I just want to make sure that someone's aware of it, because if it was my property, I would be in a panic. Just that.
What do you think it would be? It's leaning into the green.
Well, the rotten part is green side. So I would assume that's the weak spot. But anyway, it's just, to me, it's a liability waiting to happen. So I just wanted to make sure someone was watching it.
thank you. For anyone else who would like to speak during public comment on something not on the agenda? Anyone online? Okay. Department head monthly reports, any questions or comments on the February reports? Okay. Thank you. Unfinished business, waterfront pier policy revision. So Dennis, I don't know if you want to speak to this, but in your town manager's report, you had a couple of places that were inconsistent. And therefore, we're suggesting that we send it back to them to get fixed in terms of couple places in terms of approvals that were not consistent. Is that correct?
I think I'd already sent you the policy and pointed out where there was some confusion. It just is easier administratively if we can be consistent on how we do it.
Is it supposed to be in this packet?
Yeah.
It's not.
It's on the back of it.
Oh, thank you.
I need a motion,
Yeah.
motion to return the waterfront pier policy to the waterfront committee for revision.
Second.
Moved and seconded, any questions or discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0.
I just, thank you.
We can keep that.
Oh, awesome, thank you.
So.
Okay, we don't have any budget stuff, that would be placeholder in case we did. 1 o'clock update. The latest update, from Sandra Guay, their spokesperson, says, here's the latest update on 63 Main Street. The work at 1 o'clock continues to progress. The mason has been completing the prep work and bricks will start going up on Tuesday or Wednesday. I will continue to keep you updated.
Yeah, I was gonna
Did
say.
anybody
no
notice
pictures
if anyone
on-
up today?
No, as a matter of fact, they're all just sitting right there still.
Interestingly enough, I got a court scheduled the other day, because our court hearing with Maine Yankee has been scheduled for April 9th. And on the list of other court cases or court business was Warnock LLC versus Patrons Insurance Company. So I don't, it's public information, anybody that wants to go to the court should probably find out, what's going on, I suspect. He said early on in this whole thing that he'd been fighting with the insurance company because they didn't want to pay off on making the repairs. So I suspect that may have been the case, and it's gone on and it's wound up in court, so.
Wow. Hmm.
All right,
Our court date is April 9th.
April 9th.
Thank you.
All right, new business, monthly financials, the HM Payson statement of accounts, and the year-to-date department expense revenue report. Any questions or discussion on either of those?
The investments are going up.
We're in the money.
Plan B, appointment of election clerks. You have the memo from town clerk. So we need a motion as written there.
Move to appoint and confirm the election clerks as submitted by the town clerk.
second,
Moved and seconded, any questions or discussion? I just had one question under the Democratic list, Kenneth, I think that's supposed to be Lambert, but there's a typo.
yeah, it's LMA instead of LA.
Oh, yeah.
I'm assuming it matters with an official document.
Do you need to retype that before we sign it?
I probably would, should, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't type it to start with, so I'll have to wait for her to come in.
That,
It's okay, we come in tomorrow and sign it?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right, anything else? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Approval of letters of support for the Community Action Grant and Coastal Communities Grant.
move to approve the letters of support for the Community Action Grant and the Coastal Communities Grant.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, so that if you don't know, this, has to do with the climate action team and the presentation they gave. Meetings ago now.
It's part of the resolution.
Question,
Yeah,
where are they looking at, putting these plants? Or are we doing anything with the working pier there when it's all washed out underneath?
Yes. I thought Cassie was gonna be here tonight, and I don't see her online either. The plan is to go all around, all the way over to the water treatment plant area. Look at what's going on, and they're supposed to come back with, I believe, three pre-engineering proposals as to what options we have to mitigate what's going on now.
yeah, these are just to do the assessment.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. All right, discussion of proposed ordinance changes for June town meeting, so just in the order there in the packet, this will start with the airport committee. So this is a change to allow, a non-resident member to have equal voting privileges. And the key here is that their chairman currently does not have any voting privileges. And their letter says, with a committee of 5 members, we occasionally find ourselves short of a voting quorum due to his non-voting status. The policy delays our ability to approve minutes and make other recommendations to the select board that require a vote. Being an advisory committee in name, we feel sufficient checks and balances are in place to allow a review by the select board of any policies that the airport committee may generate.
And the other part of that is it's a hard time getting, people on that committee that are, familiar with their airport, workings.
So does this individual own any property in the town of Scasset at all?
I'm not really, but maybe.
I'm not in favor of putting a non-taxpayer in a position to vote changes for the town. Within our own property.
I am as a,
He may own a hangar at the airport.
Then be a taxpayer, right? So I wouldn't mind voting on this if it said a non-resident tax.
What kind of,
A non-resident taxpayer, if you added
I'm not
taxpayer
sure.
to that.
It's not looking at that. I know he's got a plane there.
Yeah,
Well, I can look it up, but.
Yeah.
Like while you're discussing that, but I don't think you should amend an ordinance just to suit one person.
well, I don't think you do either.
If that's the case here, then I think that's the wrong reason.
And-
to do it.
And the other thing is this person might be okay, I don't know him. He might be okay, but what about the next person that's sitting in that seat that's a non-resident? So, you know, I don't know, I'm not a fan. And if they can't get a vote, the people on that committee need to show up on voting nights. Sorry.
well, and also maybe it needs to be a larger committee,
How could they?
because what is it, 5?
And maybe form a 3.
5, yeah. Derek, did you?
I was thinking that we don't need to make a change in the ordinance to allow maybe a waiver or an exception for this person, this person.
Yes.
If this is a large
We
ordinance-
can't just make exceptions.
No exception.
No.
Okay. Hmm. Don't write that one up, okay, Jackie?
It's the best run commission we've got.
I guess, you know, kind of playing devil's advocate here, there are non-resident and non-resident taxpayers that do use, our airport on a regular basis.
So we don't know who might be.
Yeah, I don't know, but if he's not a taxpayer, I'm not in favor of doing it.
Right.
I don't think you change the ordinance to one person.
No, I agree.
So,
I mean, I'm willing to make an exception if, some kind of outstanding person on issues like this, but apparently that can't happen.
Just give it a second, while I look second.
well, as you see what the ordinance says, is that non-resident members shall not have voting privileges. And they're taking out the not and putting in have equal
Right.
voting privileges as residents.
I get what you're saying in terms of making decisions for the town. On the other hand, technically, they do not make decisions for the town. They give us recommendations. We make the decisions.
Yeah. Still,
I
there
think-
is,
But I think that's an important distinction.
I could be a minority and you can do what you want, but I know. So would you do this on your, budget committee, and would you do this on your waterfront committee, and would you do this on, I mean, if you're gonna do it on a committee, look at the other committees in the town, would you do it on those?
I might,
Yeah.
on some, planning board can have.
Yep, and I spoke to Dennis about that this morning, and I think that needs to say a tax-paying resident. If they don't have a financial investment in town, I don't think they should be making decisions for the town.
Yes, he owns property. Exactly.
There you go, so, non-resident taxpayer,
So you would be in favor of putting non-resident taxpayer?
if he's a taxpayer, yeah.
But I mean, I'm trying to get away from changing it for one person, because I agree that's not appropriate.
No, it's not. And I don't understand how they can't get 3 of the members that are residents to show up at a meeting to vote.
Well, one of them builds airport, so he's traveling. I saw that they've got a meeting tomorrow night and someone's at another meeting, but I hope they make it in time.
Yeah,
It's very tight. They've had times when they couldn't vote.
I know.
But there's also Zoom, and
Yeah. There's also.
that's not the only committee that,
Yeah, but that's true. There's also Zoom and, I mean, is it so critical that they make a vote today instead of waiting until next week?
Okay, how do others feel about inserting taxpayer? Bill?
Yeah.
You're good with that? Yeah. If you could come up and state your name for the record, please.
Name is Richard Luce. When you're doing business in town, yes, you'd be a taxpayer, however, you really need to live here. For instance, somebody could build a huge solar farm and be a taxpayer and then be on one of our committees to spend the money and sway how the town would vote. I don't think it should change. If it's an airport committee, then you find more residents that are using the airport or abutters that may decide to do that. They have more invested at stake than somebody that's not from our town living here. That's all I have.
Thank you.
It's just kind of iffy. It's squishy.
I mean,
Ordinances shouldn't be squishy.
well, they're easier to administer when squishy, that's for sure, but, you know, the planning board allows for one non-resident on its,
So I would
and that's,
change that.
and that's a voting member as well, right? Yeah.
I would change that also to say taxpayer.
This board requires some technical knowledge of the airports and their operation.
Yeah, I know.
I think you can claim the same for the planning board too. I think Emily does a lot of work for them.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she lives in Wisconsin, but she definitely has those technical expertise.
But she's acting as a contractor.
Right, she's not-
as part of the plan.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she doesn't vote.
So is that what I'm doing, inserting the word taxpayer in here?
I don't know that you have consensus on that either. I guess the problem for me is the order of things in terms of so obviously this goes to a vote where the public says what they want, but I guess I'd be interested in other folks' thoughts in terms of a public hearing on it. I don't, you know.
No, that's a good idea. Before we make any changes in an ordinance like that, I mean, I think that's an important kind of change that you're putting in place. Maybe have an open hearing and talk about it. Let people voice their opinions.
I mean, cause we'll have our hearing on the warrant, but that's after it's on the warrant.
Yeah, that's after the
So-
fact, so.
Right.
So I would just point out that that means it cannot make the June
Yeah,
town meeting, it have to be later.
Well, it doesn't have to be done now.
well, I did that go on, November.
Yeah,
I
this
don't
is
think there's a
emergency.
rush.
Yeah, I'd kind of be interested in seeing too, how many other towns allow, residents to vote on their committees. I just mean I get kind of stuck in a rut on things and then, and it doesn't go left or right. The way my mind works.
Okay, does anyone mind if we can we have a mini public hearing as part of our, one of our meetings in the public hearing slot? Is that,
We schedule it for the April. April, so,
okay, is that all right?
Yeah.
I just,
Oh, yeah.
I don't feel like I have a sense of what,
Yeah,
No, it's an appropriate thing to have
well, I'm a
a
big
public hearing on, and then maybe perhaps we should look at any other committee
yeah.
that has.
and because it doesn't sound like we're 100% on the same page in terms of whether we don't wanna do it at all, or we wanna put in taxpayer, or,
And I don't know, so how I know.
Because you made a valid point, they can always Zoom.
yeah.
The person who's not there can always Zoom in and raise a hand over.
They're at a meeting, leaving that meeting to come to this meeting.
But I mean, when you said like traveling, and that's come up with other committees too, and I've pushed back on that I get it, but if I'm not here, I'm gonna still try to get there.
Yeah,
Yeah, a lot of us, we've done the same thing, whether we're traveling or not.
Okay, do you need a motion on that, or can we just put it, okay, so we will do a public hearing, so. If folks, have opinions on this, please tell them to either come or shoot us an email or whatever.
No, I don't have someone on the page. They will.
Which meeting they want.
I'll talk to them, I think we have time to get a notice out. For the April second meeting. What's the Tuesday, or Monday, or Thursday? Let's leave it short. Maybe we should make it for the second meeting in April.
That's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Next one is about the budget committee. The main changes here are proposed to make them an appointed committee rather than a elected one. With one of the big reasons being no one ever runs for it and it's ended up being appointed anyway. And then I had a question about under 2.3 there, every such subcommittee will expire. Why do we have subcommittees?
I don't think they ever have, I'm not sure why that's in there, and that's
Why
why
we-
I just struck the whole thing out.
Well, maybe you should take out the chairperson shall appoint such subcommittees.
Yeah,
mean,
I don't understand why we would
If
have
they don't
that.
have-
Did they, have a subcommittee when they looked at the electric light?
They kind of did, and I think subcommittees are pretty much left up to the committee to decide whether they want a subcommittee to work on anything or not. The subcommittee has no authority other than to report back to the committee itself, so. I mean, the waterfront committee had the working waterfront subcommittee that did a whole lot of other work. I mean, I personally don't see an issue with committees appointing a couple of people as a subcommittee to work on a specific thing, but,
No, I just don't know why it needs to be in the ordinance.
well, I didn't write the ordinance stuff.
No, I know, but I'm saying while we're looking at it. And if we're proposing getting rid of the one sentence that says. Every such subcommittee shall expire no later than the conclusion of the next annual town meeting following its approval.
So is this the only committee that is allowed subcommittees, but in their ordinance?
I don't know the answer to that, I have to look that up, I don't.
I mean, but any committee can have
But
that.
any committee can have that anyway. I don't think it needs to be in writing. If they have two or three people that say, oh, well, I'll look into that for us. And get back the information on the next meeting. I don't think they even need it in there. They can just do it.
So you wanna strike out even more of that?
Yeah, I mean, I take out everything on subcommittee room.
Which I think is just the
So
sentence.
just
I mean, if you look at,
previous the sentence before.
Says the chairperson shall appoint such subcommittees and subcommittee chairman as the committee may from time to time approve. Well, they can do that anyway.
So we're striking that because it's redundant or?
I'm just trying to simplify it.
yeah, it was just so much.
Because if we're taking the time and effort to change this and go through that process, why not? If it's something that maybe. Okay, and then the other change. Is the wording on 2.8, which is about voting
Yeah.
and their recommendation. So this is something we came across. When we were talking about the budget this time around that, it says in here. Shall make its recommendation to the town in regard thereto, or shall report specific reasons for making no recommendation. And the proposed here is for making an opposed recommendation, so anytime it's a 0, 5 or 2, 5 or whatever. They would need to give a reason for it, and that doesn't mean individuals have to give reasons, that means the committee itself. And then tie vote shall be deemed an opposed recommendation.
But really that reason for them can be just what we had the other day, where he said, what was the money?
Yeah, although I would love to see more than that, because that wasn't really helpful.
No, it's always, I think we
Like,
spend too much on
obviously it's
everything.
money, but like what,
I spend too
what do
much
you
on
want us to
homework.
do otherwise?
Yeah.
But in any case, that's at least something. Okay,
I appreciate adding that language. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I do.
Well, part of the problem with this one was it goes back to the day before, there was a referendum, it was still an open town meeting.
Right.
Where you're giving them a warrant. But that warrant is 3 days before the town meeting, it doesn't happen any longer, so.
Right. Okay.
We haven't been following it in practice anyway. So this just, I think clears that up. If it's not clear to everybody, then
I don't know, why do you have to say that the chairperson is entitled to vote as any other member of the committee?
I don't know what that refers to.
Yeah, that's really clear too, because, of course, the chairman on a committee votes.
Not necessarily. Some committees and town committees, not here, but the chair doesn't vote except to break a tie.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think it doesn't harm to leave it.
I mean, it doesn't do any harm to leave it there, but it's just odd.
Is there anywhere else in this or somewhere else that says anything about, if they miss a certain number of meetings? And I mention this only because this kept coming up because they didn't have a forum multiple times. And I mean, this is not, it's an important committee that doesn't meet that often, and therefore those meetings are really important.
Should there be something that refers to all committees having that same thing?
Well, your committee
Well, we have
handbook,
the
your
committee
committee
handbook.
handbook refers to that already.
What does that
Um,
cover?
and isn't there a spot in here that,
It talks about if you die.
Well, then you don't have to come to the meeting.
You're in Chicago, you can.
That would be funny.
So fail to serve.
well, not coming to meetings is failure to
Failure to
serve.
serve.
So
Okay.
I would take that to be the case. I was gonna mention that in your discussion on the airport thing, that if you're having trouble showing up, because you have that option of saying, because, you know,
Yeah.
you're not
If you're
showing up.
failing to serve, then
I'm not sure if that same language is actually in here.
So, the only thing that's crossed out is this day of posting for any town meeting.
no, there are other things for.
Okay, but is it okay, that's, because it's written here.
That's what we're, is everybody okay with 2-8?
Yeah. So the only thing.
Talking about votes.
The only thing different is the last run-on sentence and 2-3. Eliminating that.
Okay. The next.
Yeah.
next sentence.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
next to last sentence.
So the 2 sentences about subcommittees.
Yeah,
It's also a clerical error on 2-1, was passed it as a comma after
Oh, I love it. Where?
2-1.
I see it, 2-1.
With, oh, yeah, in the red.
Yeah.
Legal residence of Wisconsin and as a comma and a period after.
Well, this is just a draft copy anyways, but where is it? Oh, right there, okay.
Okay,
That's what happens when you copy paste.
alright, any other? On this one? Okay,
It will only on the, ballot show opposed or approved,
show what?
opposed or approved. Does it show the numbers?
It shows the numbers.
Yes,
Is there a way to perhaps simply show opposed or approved? Why would the numbers be necessary? Now, I bring it up because we're going the other way with this committee. You're changing it to an appointed committee. It's not a voted, it's not an elected committee, which, you know, could be, you know, deemed by some people as a policy-making position. Sometimes that happens, but to put the votes on the ballot, we have already seen that often it has an outsized effect on the public, on the way they vote.
supposed to, it's not supposed to influence the vote, that's,
It's supposed to be another
it's
consideration.
just supposed to be
But I would argue that if you went to just approved or opposed, that would be even worse if you were in favor of something that they were opposed to, because then what if it was okay, it's 9 members, so let's say it was a 3-4 vote. It would just say opposed, so you wouldn't even get, oh, well, they were kind of split on this. Opposed is worse to me if I'm in favor of that thing.
Yeah, as opposed to all 9 members voted no for opposed.
I can hear you on that, but the effect is on the voting public. When they see even one person opposed, even one, I have seen that it has an effect on a vote. 2 definitely does. They feel like, oh, there's something they didn't know. And it's not, it's an overwhelmingly approved vote, positive vote, but, I have a problem with a non-elected body for sure, having, this much, at least here, especially if it has to do with the budget, having that much policy making, policy influencing position, that much of a policy influencing position.
Well, that's what the original ordinance was meant to do. That was the main job they had. If you read the original ordinance, it's only a couple of sentences. And the main thing was to put down whether they approve or don't approve of it.
I'm all for that, but I don't want the numbers.
So then you're denying them information.
Well, but the information is gonna be available. I mean, it's a public meeting and all the minutes are provided. And what they're well done. So there's nothing hidden from the public. Again, this is about the outsized influence of publishing those votes on the budget committee.
I don't disagree that they have an outside influence. I think that's always been the case, for better or for worse. I think it's less information if you don't put the numbers on there, and at least from a personal standpoint, if I see something that's 8-1 versus
6-2.
well, I'm trying to make sure I'm adding up to 9, 6-3.
Well,
There's a big difference to me there. I'm still gonna ask questions, but there's a big difference in terms of.
so often those votes are 4-1 or 5-1, something. It's not all 9 people. We don't.
No.
When was the last time we had a full budget?
Well, but that's the other thing is I totally get where you're coming from in terms of appointed versus elected, but they haven't been a true elected body in years.
I agree.
Because no one wants to serve. / run.
So that also tells us something. One thing it tells us is that, this body is extremely well informed on the budget, thanks to, an incredibly capable town manager, but also we make it our business to look at the whole budget and in whole and in parts. That is what we do. The budget committee, I'm not sure how many times they meet. I'm not sure that how many times they review the budget like we do, which of course, that's why they have a provision for subcommittees so that they can do some detailed work. I don't know, and I would love to know from Bill, since he's a past president of or chairman of the budget committee. Have you had a lot of experience, or does the budget committee have a lot of experience with, as in several meetings with the budget directors, the directors of the different town departments, and assistant directors or other information from every single department considered
When I was on there, you used to meet them, and we went over the budget.
Yeah, so Terry,
Yeah.
And they also, they've been doing other things, they've been, given the task this past year and a half ago to look into the different bids on the, street lighting. And came back with a report showing which ones they thought was the best deal for us. And I know, Dennis and I know myself would like them to do more of that stuff, things that we don't have to dig into, let them do it.
And then come to us with recommendations. Pam?
yeah, so I was on the budget committee for 6 years.
Okay.
We went over the budget the same way the board of selectmen go over the budget when I was on the budget committee.
The budget.
We looked at every line item, we looked at every department, we looked at revenues, we looked at expenditures, we looked at everything. I spent 6 years on budget committee, we looked at it very hard. And when I look at the budget committee's vote on it, frankly, if the budget, if there's a strong vote from the board of selectmen, I don't pay a lot of attention to the budget committee, sorry, budget committee, but I don't pay a lot of attention to what their count is anyway. If there's a strong vote for the board of selectmen to support it, the only time I really look at the budget committee is to see what their count is, to see, so if the select board was 3-2 and the budget committee is 5-4, then I'm thinking this maybe isn't a good number.
When was the last time we saw a vote like that? And I happen to agree with you. I mean, I think that's very strong reasoning.
But other than very diverse numbers like that, I don't really.
I don't know.
Another thing is,
I don't know where
mostly
I'd
they're
like,
looking at
you
the
know.
financial side of it, and we're looking at some other sides of it.
Right.
Mostly they're looking at the financial side of it, and we're looking at the financial and also other impacts on it.
Well, the social aspects of all the
Right.
services in town. and
I've had a
all
lot of voters come up to me when they're gonna vote early, and they say, why did the budget committee, or why did your committee vote no on this, or why did several people vote no?
Right, because all they look at is the money, they don't look at the social services and all of that, they're looking at the cash.
That actually speaks to my point.
Well, I'm not sure I agree with that. But each person, I feel like it depends on the individual, what they're,
Well, that's, yeah,
how they're looking at it, but I guess I would disagree with you that they're a policy-making body, because they're not. They may influence, but it's still the voters and there still are on there.
Influence is a big deal.
That's why they're there. I would just remind you
Yeah,
that they
they're-
attend every meeting that you guys can
mhm.
and get the same information that you guys get. And then they meet on their own, and I met with them, answer all of their questions and make sure they had all of the information that they needed. To make their own.
So in effect, we have two different boards making decisions about the same information.
Mhm.
And they're not a policy-making body after that
No.
kind of, Dennis, I am very happy that you do that, okay? I think they should have all of the information that we have. However, I think that to put them on the same level as us on the ballot, it is the same level. These people voted this way, these people voted that way. It's, it's the same level of decision-making.
Well,
However, it's ultimately up to the voters. We don't decide on the budget. We recommend numbers. And they say whether it's the same way we take the 2 votes. We say, the first vote is we're gonna put this number on there. Then we say if we personally think that's the number. So I just don't, in many ways, I wouldn't say we are a policymaking body for the budget. We make our recommendation, sure. But we don't decide what the budgets are.
Terry, are you asking that we not put a recommendation on the ballot at all?
No, I'm asking that it be a word.
I'm
Approved,
not,
So-
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I don't know, so why don't you make a motion that we do that and see if anybody seconds it and if they wanna vote on it? And if you don't get a second, then we.
Well, the recommendation is required. If you have a budget committee, you have to put the recommendation on the ballot. I
right?
don't think it spells out what you have to put for a recommendation, and
It's spelled out.
a yes or no. I see towns that actually, their budget committee put different budget numbers that they recommend.
Oh, ours used to do that.
As opposed to a yes or a no.
This one
With
is
Kath that did that years ago.
the
I
wording
like
here,
that a whole lot better.
the proposed wording says taking a final vote to place on said article. To me, that means a vote. Kim,
Martha? Okay, so taking a final
Thanks,
vote
Sarah.
to
I
place said article.
this is secretary. Kim, go ahead.
So Kim Anderson, Superintendent of Schools. I just would like to point out that this year, the Budget Committee made a vote on the school budget, but they didn't attend all of the meetings and they didn't ask any questions. So I just feel like that should be a part of the record.
That vote also doesn't go on anything though,
Okay,
to my knowledge.
I don't believe we've ever put the budget.
You have.
recommendation on the.
Because we don't either.
And they've never voted on it before that I was aware of, so I thought so what was the vote for?
So they
They
voted.
wanted to.
Right. They voted on it pre-RSUs. When Governor Jacques went and put the RSUs into place, it took all the way, everybody votes for their schools in, changed it.
I just wanted everyone here though to be,
Yeah.
to realize that they did not attend all the meetings or
Right.
see a line item budget. Or
Right.
do with the process that they do with other town departments.
Okay. Are you, Terry, I kind of cut you off. Were you trying to say something else?
I'm
Were you
sorry,
trying to say something else when I had Kim speak?
yeah, but I forgot what it is.
So Terry, the reason that's worded the way it is, the committee recommended that they have their final votes before the select board has their final votes. So that you would know how they all voted. Because once you
Okay.
make your final decision to put something on the warrant, it doesn't matter what the budget committee. It's a done deal, so.
People don't know that out there when they're looking at the articles. When they're voting for them, and I mean, you know what I'm saying.
I do, I personally feel it's disingenuous not to put that number on. It feels to me like we're trying to hide something and
I'm not talking about hiding anything. I'm talking about literally, the amount of influence that vote has, you know, I finally remembered what I wanted to say. And that is, I don't know where I read it lately, it seemed like it was in the paper, could have been in the letters to the editor. But, point was that, what the select board does is they just approve everything, approve, and at least the budget committee doesn't approve everything, just approve things, you know, without, it looks like, without any division of vote on this board, as if we're not paying attention. That is not true. But it was said, and I can see how, you know, that would influence somebody to say, well, you know, maybe it's just not all that important to the select board. And so the budget committee would know more than the select board, and maybe that's why they look at those votes.
My response to that is, at least as chair, I don't wanna put something on that we as a board think is going to fail. So therefore, we're gonna work on to get to a number that we at least have a majority we think makes sense. So that's why it might look like we just approve everything. Well, that might not be where we started.
That's a very smart, political, and strong thing to do for a board to do in making sure that there is a full support behind an article.
Well, I think it's a
That's
waste of the public's time if we don't do that.
And when you don't do that, you get exactly what happens with when you put our votes 5-0 up against a vote from the budget committee that is 4-1, 5-1, 4-2, whatever. That means that they don't have the same feeling about trying to show, give assurance of an approved vote. If it's a division, we don't want division to show up on the ballot either, for exactly the same reason what you said.
Yeah, but I guess they have a different. they, by nature of how the process works, and particularly if we put this in here in terms of the order in which things happen, they have basically a different role than we do. Where the budget is in a sense ours and Dennis's to present, so it wouldn't make any sense for us to put a budget on there and then have a whole bunch of opposed. I mean, it happens every once in a while, we might not agree exactly on all of them, but for the budget committee, at least for me, they are an added level of review and sort of a check on things. And it's not perfect, and not everybody comes to every meeting, but I'm not opposed to it in the sense that you're saying.
And well,
So are you
yeah.
making a motion on something?
So I would point out that you're kind of talking about two different things here as well. You're talking about the ordinance, which, you know, we're trying to tweak. Then you're talking about the warrant, which is a whole other matter. The warrant is, that is your document. And at the end of the day, as long as it's worded legally, you can word it however you wish. So the statute says that you have to put the recommendation on there, but I have to double check this, but I don't think it specifies that it has to be the numbers, yes or no, or whatever. I have to double check that.
Thank you.
Do you wanna make a motion and get this over with?
Yes, I so moved.
What do we vote?
You guys say I like that motion on.
I don't really need a motion on these tonight,
Thank you.
because you'll have the
Okay, would you like to come back and
Yeah.
let us know what the answer to that is?
That would be helpful.
So
Yes.
just a point is, nothing about that is in the budget committee's ordinance at all.
Nothing about what?
Right.
About what we put on the warrant.
Right, but that's,
But so you can still vote the budget committee ordinance since nothing about what we put
Right.
on the warrant is in there.
but there's inserted language pursuant to blah, 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 the committee's recommendation shall appear on any written ballot. So the point is, we need to check to see if that
There has to be, there has to be
chapter,
a
et cetera.
recommendation.
Right,
That
but it
has to
could
go
be,
on to that.
so it's numbers usually, or maybe it can be verbal, verbiage. So you could still vote the ordinance and you can check on it, and then the select board can vote later on whether they wanna change how we put it on the warrant.
Well, you said we're not voting
Okay.
this tonight.
I don't need to vote on this tonight, you'll vote on the.
Okay, so he's gonna find out what that says.
So I'll get that information.
Are we gonna vote on this?
No,
No.
No, thank you, you're gonna wait until.
Yeah.
all right, recreational vehicles, yeah.
Just put that one line up there.
Sorry, what?
Richard, I think he had his hand up.
Oh. I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
I think it's just.
After being around some towns, not from Wisconsin, but as a taxpayer, I do look at budget committee's recommendation, I look at the numbers. Then I look at the selectmen numbers, and then I look at the figure that that's being recommended and looked at. I think it would be a disservice to the residents to not put all of that information down. If we avoid that, then we'll be looking at why do we even put down the counts for the selectmen's meetings? And then we have people coming in and challenging the selectmen for information. Or stuff they just voted on without any input. And knowing where the select board stands and where the budget committee stands. It's almost like a automatic approval, and I think that's not a way to do business.
Thank you. Chris?
On that same thing you've been discussing about, yeah, you want everybody in lockstep and not to know, you know, that it's 6-3, 9, 3-2. Well, to me, I would rather see that, you know, there are people on both sides of it. Because we're all people and we all have opinions. And if you see that, you know, it wasn't a straight through all in favor, you know that there was some discussion of things like this and some opinions exchanged in it, rather than just being like we have some boards in town now that just rubber stamp everything and, you know, that's very disappointing. You know, that's just what that, seeing the numbers, you know, that yes, I agree and you don't agree. And then it goes out to the people who, you know, I voted here for many years and things. And, you know, there's a lot of the town is very informed in what goes on, you know, like anything, so. So that's just my 3 cents worth. It's nice to see the numbers and know that it isn't just rubber stamp straight through. Yeah, we didn't think about this. That's what that says to me when I see opposing sides.
Thank you. All right, moving on to recreational vehicles.
So I've mentioned this previously, that we have 3 different ordinances that deal with RVs. And we've gotten some complaints in town because we do have an ordinance that says you cannot use an RV as a dwelling unit. And a dwelling unit is pretty well defined, so an RV doesn't really fit the bill. But across 3 ordinances, you have 3 different times that you can stay temporarily in an RV. Floodplain ordinance, the shoreline zoning ordinance, and then we had just the RV ordinance, which said you can stay in an RV temporarily, but it didn't define what temporary was. So is it 120 days, like one ordinance, 180 days? And so because this actually crossed into shoreline zoning and some land use stuff, I asked the ORC if they could please look at it, clean it up, make it easier for us on the administrative end to be able to enforce this. Because right now, I don't know what temporary is when it comes to, you know, people staying in an RV outside of the shoreline zone or the floodplain. So anyways, this is the work that the ORC put into this. And Emily is on, so they haven't too many questions you can ask her because wasn't too involved in this, but we've just tried to make it consistent across all 3 ordinances, so that.
Yeah, so all 3 ordinances now say that no matter where your RV is, you're going to be in it no more than 120 consecutive days.
That is correct.
So if I'm living in an RV, I'm gonna stay in it 120 days, I'm gonna move out and go sleep in my car down the street, and I'm gonna move back in my RV.
I knew.
Just saying,
I knew.
I'm following the letter of law. Oh, gosh.
I mean, you are, but technically, like, the way I see this being enforced is you can't just move out of it, you gotta move it.
That's what it says.
So you gotta move it down the road.
You have to take it off your
You have to take it off.
Take it off the front.
So I own a $37,000 camper. I keep parked at the bottom of my yard and I'm not living in it, but every 120 days.
No.
You're not
This
living.
only applies to using it as a dwelling unit.
Okay,
Not
so
storage.
if I was living in it, okay, if I was living in it, I'd have to take it off my property, drive it around the block and bring it back.
For at least a day. The way this is. I'm not sure how you would actually get around.
It's another squishy thing.
Um,
Is there a way to add to that, a time period that you could not move back in for at least 30 days? Or something to that nature?
Emily, any thought on that?
So you could change that in shoreland, in the floodplain and in the general town ordinance, but you can't change shoreland. So then you're back in the boat of the 3 not matching. They would be similar, but still different.
But I'm not the only one in the world with a devious mind, and if I were living in a camper and that was, you know, pretty much all I had to live in, and I own a piece of property, I'm gonna take my camper off and drive it over to a neighbor's house for a day, and then I'm gonna put it back and move back in. I mean, there are people who do it, so is there something you can?
So there probably are.
Yeah, so is there so what else can you do? Can you put that in all 3 ordinances?
Well, Emily just said we couldn't do it in the shoreline ordinance, so.
120 days annually.
Oh, yeah,
What?
120 days annually, can you do that? Emily?
No.
Again, it's a matter of you can't change the language in shoreline zoning, that's state mandated language. So we're making the other two ordinances consistent with what the state has put in. We could go back to the state and see if they'd be willing to change it, but they weren't when we asked if we could change it from 120 to 180. So I don't know that they would be in favor of any language change.
Sorry, if you would.
I'm looking, oh, sorry.
Just, they can't hear if you're not.
I'm looking at this and I'm thinking that, a camper and a so-called tiny house are the same thing.
No,
Yeah.
they are defined differently in
They
state
are,
law.
even though they're into wheels the same way.
Yeah. There are two different definitions in state.
I
law.
wondered about that too.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Any other questions for
I mean,
Tiffany since she's here?
I guess that would solve the problem on two ordinances, but not one. I don't know if it's
You know, we're
a
thinking
huge issue
about,
shoreline zone, but
Well, now you've given them all the idea, thanks.
You welcome. Trust me, they had it already.
this is about the spirit of the law and the letter of the law. There's always that desire on my part anyway, to be able to say, it is the intent of this, whatever it is, word, to discourage additional days spent in your camper, beyond 120,
It's
whatever.
meant to discourage people from living in them.
Year round.
That, and that probably should be said also. If people, there's game playing that is encouraged by, giving those specific lines. If there was some mention of, here's something we really don't want, or in plain English, we don't want people living in RVs for,
Well said.
a home.
But it's hard to enforce.
So does this at least make it so that the code enforcement officer can drive up and say, get out? And make it stop, or does it not do that?
yes, because it makes it easier for us to look at it and say, well, we know you've been there for 121 days. Illegally, we'll take you to court.
Right.
Because if we take it to court and the judge says, well, how long have you been there? And they're gonna say, well, what does your ordinance say, how long you can be there? Well, it says they can be there temporarily.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and
So, and if they've been living in it, they have to take it off the property?
That's the way I interpret it to be. If you're, well, no, you don't have to take it off the property.
Okay.
You have to
Because if
vacate it.
you
So
just
even if
can't
it's stayed on property, you can't live in there.
live in it. So if you own a piece of property up in Maine
Mhm.
and in Florida, have a camper up here, you come and you stay in it from June to September. We're not telling you you have to take it off the lot. We're just telling you you can't stay in it from June until December.
Right.